Hello and welcome to another episode of the MiamiHal Real Estate Show. If you heard that music, it's new music. I do want to do, probably for the next two shows, I'll point out that's a friend of mine. His name is Dave Kerzner, Kerzner. And if you like that music, go check him out because he's got some great stuff.
Nice.
But today, it's a real estate show, not a music sales show. So we have the mayor of Palmetto Bay here. Karyn Cunningham is my guest. It's taken us a couple times to get together. But we're going to make very good use of our time. The last time we did this, the internet failed us here at the studio. So some of you might have seen part of the show, but not all of it. So thank you so much for coming back.
It's my pleasure, and I do apologize for
No, not at all.
Last two.
The last thing is I will always remind my audience, we have social media at our beck and call. You've got an empty box in front of you. If you have a serious question, we'd love to have you type it in. And during the show, we will look at some questions and try to get those answers as well. But
sounds good.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Sure.
Because the last time that we were supposed to sit down, it was just before hurricane season. And Palmetto Bay had a couple of events that were around safety and preparing for hurricanes.
That's correct. And
thankfully, we haven't had any problems yet.
We can hear the thunder rumbling outside.
Yes, there is today. But why don't we just quickly talk about hurricane preparedness? Do you believe that Palmetto Bay has done what they should have done for the residents, and have the residents responded the right way?
Well, as you've said, thankfully, we have not had that opportunity to find out.
Test.
But I can assure the residents of the village, plus anyone else that's listening, the village of Palmetto Bay is definitely prepared for hurricane season. Drains have been cleaned, trees have been trimmed back. And, the staff is prepared to make preparation before, not during, but then immediately after, should we have the opportunity to experience a storm.
Got it. Good. And there's so many other things that we're going to get to today about Palmetto Bay. Look, you're getting calls already. This is good.
Are they supposed to be calling me directly?
I don't think so,
know.
but we'll work on the right things. You have a ton of things in front of you, which I know you want to get to. I'm also going to start with this, which is a competitor realtor sent me this, sent a flyer to you, actually.
I know.
And it has some good information on it. So we won't talk about the other side, but we will talk about the fact that you have received this and we're intrigued, right?
Yeah.
How's the market doing? And what we find, as I get a phone call as well, is that closed sales are down. In this case, it's showing 28% lower than a year ago. And so when you first opened this up, I'm going to give this back to you.
Sure.
What statistics kind of jumped out at you? What was important to you that you saw there?
Well, that home values are up. Obviously, That's great news to some degree.
Right.
Maybe not great news for folks that are looking to buy.
Yeah.
So it says they're up 32%. As you pointed out, though, this particular information may not be just Palmetto Bay, but home values are definitely up.
Yeah.
I've been meeting with a lot of residents on their doorsteps as I've been making my way through the community. I am seeing fewer homes. That's my estimate. I don't know if that falls in line with this, but fewer homes that are on the market right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that are, as I pass through communities, I'm seeing them on the market for longer. Just what seems like maybe about a year ago, and I'm no expert, you're the expert, but as I was driving, through the community before, you'd see a house on the market and then you'd be like, whoa, pending contract.
Yeah.
So I think that's what some of this information.
What's really interesting about what you just said is what you see, because you're on the streets, literally, in the community that you're trying to find out information for. And even though you're, quote unquote, not the expert, you really are. Because what you see on radio and television are higher level views of what the market is, and they are only looking at data of things that have closed. So they're typically about 60 to 90 days behind what's actually happening today.
Got it.
And what happened 90 days ago doesn't even come close to what's happening today. So if you were out walking and visiting residents in Palmetto Bay in the last week, you're more ahead of even the numbers that are on that chart.
Well, and I can tell you for your profession, because I've spoken with several residents whose homes I saw were for sale by owner.
Mm-hmm.
The 3, 4, 5 that I've spoken to, they've said we're now in the market for a realtor.
I hope you mentioned my name.
We're not. We tried it. We said we were going to try it for a couple months or 6 months. It's not worked out as well as we thought. So to your benefit and also to the credit of the realtors in the community, you all obviously know your work.
Well, we certainly try to do the right thing. And for those of you that are thinking about doing for sale by owner, it is cyclical. We understand this, and we kind of watch the market and understand that not only are prices going to go up and down and demand, et cetera, but that at some points in the market, it feels like, oh, I can do this myself. And the reality is, if you kind of look at your work and what you do, could somebody random step into that and do the job as well as you can? And the reality is, most of you are, if you're honest with yourself, will say, no, of course, I've got expertise. And so that's important to know. And one of the things in particular with real estate is a professional takes the emotion out of the equation.
That's a good point. Yes.
And if you're a seller, especially somebody that's been in the home for a long period of time, you're not just looking at the dollars and cents. You're like, oh my God, my house is great because,
right.
And the reasons why the house is great for you may not be the general reasons why it's good for somebody else.
Sure, absolutely.
And you always get tied into, oh my God, the inspections are going to come and they'll find something wrong. And, I'm going to react.
That's probably the most sensitive part of a home sale.
It
is when the inspector comes in.
And you're like,
and
oh, no.
You turn that light switch 3 times and the light comes on.
Right. But,
but a buyer may not want that.
Not going to want that. Exactly. But out of the statistics, I think you're correct in how you felt about the market, meaning homes that are, now on the market are on for longer periods of time. No longer are there lines for an open house. And yes, and I don't remember the exact percentage, but it's up maybe 20 to 25% on the time that a house is on the market now. The other thing that you said, which is actually a little bit off the mark, is that there are actually more homes on the market, not because there's a whole bunch of people trying to sell, but imagine this: the same percentage of people are trying to get on the market, but they're not being absorbed as quickly because, again, they're on the market for longer, and therefore there aren't as many new home sales signs going up, but there's a lot that stay up longer. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I would be interested in finding out at some point, because I just read an article about the number of people that moved from the Northeast to areas like Palmetto Bay, just South Florida in general.
Yep.
But now they're being called back to work to some degree.
Yes.
And they came, they saw, and they're headed back. So
it's interesting. I have a regular guest on the show who's another realtor, and we talk about the fact that everybody until they get here believe that this is paradise. And yes, it is to a degree. It is a paradise, right? We live in a great area, but there are some things that people from the Northeast or from California aren't ready for. And so even hurricane preparedness might scare somebody.
Sure.
We're now used to it. We know what to do and we know what to expect to a degree. But somebody from New York that comes down during, the non-hurricane season, buys a home, and then all of a sudden they see their village or their town making major preparations, and they hear all these awful things, and you've got to buy stuff while there's tax days, and it can wear on somebody. But we know how to deal with that, and it really is a small bump on the paradise road.
Absolutely.
I want to let you kind of drive the show, because you have a bunch of things which are going to lead us to important topics, but I'm going to ask you out of that pile. Let's start with the tax
trim notice.
document.
Sure.
So tell us about what that is, a trim notice, and what it really means to somebody that is about to own or is owning a property in Palmetto
Well,
Bay.
this is your prospective taxes that are in front of you. We set our maximum millage rate. The Village of Palmetto Bay set their maximum millage rate at 2.4. It's the same millage rate that we had last year. We have upcoming 2 budget hearings, a little different from the budget workshops, if you will, which were more aspirational in nature. And these are going to be a little bit, well, not a little bit, these are going to be the deep dive into what it is we're trying to provide in the budget. Our manager is going to be presenting the budget. He just put the budget out for the public to take a look at. Right now, the budget that he's presenting is at a 2.35 millage rate, very small reduction from where we were last year.
And so here we see, if the camera's not going to capture this, but we see several columns. We see what the last year's taxable value was, and obviously you know what you paid in taxes
Sure.
prior year. And then you see a couple of other columns with different proposed numbers. And maybe you can explain, why there's a low, medium, and high number on this sheet.
I think it just it is a gauge for people to see where that millage rate is going to land. I think for our residents, I think one of the most important things that I've been pointing out as I've been chatting with residents is to look at the municipal taxes. I currently pay $659 in taxes. And we do a lot with my $659, right? Because folks will take a look at the big picture, and obviously house values have gone up, right? That means an increase in potentially moving forward, an increase in the amount of taxes they're going to pay, even if nothing changes. And then we also know that some of the services that we contract with the county, garbage is one of them. Garbage pickup.
It's never going to get less expensive, is it?
It isn't. Well, nothing's getting less expensive. Exactly. I think that's a really good point, especially post-COVID.
Yeah.
So we've got, as I mentioned, we have our budget budget hearings coming up. Our manager is preparing to present a budget at 2.35. I think that's important.
That's the millage rate, 2.35.
It's the millage rate,
yeah, okay.
A millage rate of 2.35. As I mentioned, we set the millage rate at 2.4. I had a conversation with him. We went through all of our departments. He met with the individual departments as he was preparing his presentation and the budget that he's going to present. And I asked him, listen, is it possible that we could potentially propose a budget that is a small reduction in the millage rate from the maximum that we set? So that's what we're actually going to see coming up. There's lots of good things chalked into that budget, including increases in police services, canal patrols, infrastructure. We've spent more money over the last 3-4 years focused on street by street, which was an initiative that I began. So street paving, which residents have said is very important to them, sidewalks, not so much the new sidewalk component, although there have been some newer sidewalks that have been plugged in, 136th Street being a great example. I know you've traveled along it because I've seen you walking on it.
Yes, I do.
And then the other thing that, two things that residents have indicated are top priorities, parks and public safety, obviously. So.
Got it. So just to kind of put a capper on this and work our way to a different topic.
Sure.
The millage rate obviously is what you can control as a government.
It is.
You do not control the appraisal of each individual home. That's at the county level.
Sure.
And so even if you cap at the numbers you gave before, 2.4 or 2.35 is what you're driving to, but no higher than 2.4. But the county assesses the home at a higher rate, you're going to pay some more taxes. And the hope is that you keep things in line where people can pay and maybe even see a reduction in their overall bill. But you also don't want to cut a bunch of services because people are screaming for things to be improved rather than cut.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I can just throw out just a couple of numbers for you. So the Village Maintenance Fund, we haven't had one. We're trying to make that a fund. We've got aging buildings, right? We built a brand new Village Hall many years ago. It needs some love.
Don't say it's many years ago. I watched it go up, so that means I'm old.
Well, you're not old, but it was a few years back. Okay. And just like any structure, our own homes, for example, we repaint them, right? After 10, 15 years, I would assume. We have to put new roofs on after a certain amount of time. So now we see a lot of folks working to put in impact windows, which, by the way, we waived permit fees, was an initiative I brought forward recently. That goes till November. We're trying to pair that with the state's rollback on the sales tax for windows. So little reduction. If folks are putting windows, there are a lot of people putting in windows. I can say that because as I'm making my way through the community, you can kind of see that. We focused on our resiliency plan. We have a resiliency coordinator now. So we've got looking at if the budget passes, and I'm sure there'll be changes. That's what these next 2 meetings are for. But having a resiliency plan, $100,000, CRS, which I won't go into because we've talked about it before, but community rating scale, we're bringing that down, putting money in people's pockets, setting aside $50,000 for that. Big ticket items, $2 million for Veterans Park. That's a park we're actually going to be acquiring on the deed to on the 12th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
just
that's
a few
going to
days
be
away.
it's going to be big
Okay.
community news, hopefully.
All right.
Our Parks Master Plan, which we're in the process of plugging in money, because you can create a plan, which has been done in the past, and then you don't plug money in to go with it. So we're plugging in $500,000 in this current budget, and the list goes on. And last, another big ticket item I think that's important to the community, which I know you followed, is that Coral Reef Rec Room, right? That was
Yes.
demolished.
I was just about to ask.
Several years ago. Set aside $1.2 million. And so some of this is ARPA dollars. So I think the folks kind of have some idea those are federal funds. There were some benefits to COVID. ARPA dollars were one of those
That's some money
benefits.
coming in.
Yeah. So some good stuff chalked into the budget. Hopefully the community thinks it's good stuff. And I can tell you, I know there's been a lot of talk about taxes. There have been negative mailers that have gone out from PACs regarding, blame this one or blame that one for taxes or other things. I've spoken with almost 2,500 residents since May. That is face to face, just like we're doing now. And when you explain to the public what it is we're doing and what we did last year, an uptick, and you and I talked about it, I think last time. I don't know if it was actually, it was actually
got it on the air. We talked about it, but nobody heard.
But,
okay.
We had to do a small increase in our millage rate last year. That weighs on everybody, but it was purposeful because we have set our fiscal house straight. And I think at the end of the day, when you're having conversations with folks and you're able to break it down to a dollar amount, last year for me, I don't know about for each individual resident, but it was $57. $57 is a lot of money. I understand that. But over the course of 365 days, adding to police officers, maintaining the quality of services people have come to know. And the reason why they move into the village, I think most folks, when I'm having those one-on-one conversations, they really understand the purpose behind that.
So we all know that it's an election cycle right now.
No.
Yeah, we do know
Is
that.
it?
We do know that. I can tell by the stuff I get in the mail every day. So it's an election cycle. And, I do not want to get into the back and forth that potential candidates and just people that are activists in the community it's at each other's throats. And I think to many people, it gets bothersome. What they want to know is what each candidate's going to do. And obviously you've had years in office now. So forget about the past and forget about the way that people may or may not be talking about you. I tell you, like, you wake up and you're driving the bus. What is happening today? I literally mean today. That is first and foremost, hey, this is new and this needs attention, or hey, this has been on the back burner and now I'm going to work on this. What is happening on your dashboard?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things that I do want to work on separately, but we spent literally the last 4 years trying to set the ship straight, move the village in the right direction. The first and foremost always is that fiscal stability. And I think we've finally acquired that really under the leadership of our manager that's been with us for 2 years. And I think you've had the opportunity.
Yes, he's been on the show.
To interview him. Yeah, he's just really.
We'll invite him back too.
Yeah, he'll enjoy that. He may be listening now as well. So that's all good stuff. But one of the things I think I'm most excited about, we've moved a lot of things in the right direction. I've talked about some of them. Crime is down 30% since last year. Those stats are validated in the information that's been provided to me from our police department. And I think, moving forward, for me personally, it's going to be the same thing that we've talked about over the course of the last few years. The priorities of the residents. And so the things that the people say are most important to them. And I've just mentioned them, I'll mention them again.
Streets.
Yes,
Repaving
was
streets.
number one was
I was
public.
paying attention.
I'm impressed.
I'm parroting
That's
it back to
great. Put the camera back on him. He knows what I'm going to do. I'm kidding. No, seriously. But public safety is number one.
Okay.
So this budget provides for an additional police officer, which our commander said would be beneficial to our village community policing department. So streets and sidewalks. This budget allows for us, at least for this year, to be able to move forward and almost double the amount of money we were spending on street paving and sidewalks. And again, I want to clarify, it's not brand new sidewalks. Don't worry, your residential street is not going to have, but it's just, we have sidewalks that need some maintenance.
Okay.
Definitely. Being able to, start doing some of the work that needs to be done as it relates to just regular infrastructure in our city. We have an aging, it's 20 years old, and it was already much older when it came to us. And then last but not least is parks. And I think that's probably one of the most exciting things about our upcoming budget is providing those, not only the recreational opportunities, because we've got a very robust event schedule, right, in Palmetto Bay. And I know in the past you've come to so many of those events, but really being able to give some love to the parks. I know there's been so much talk about the pathway at Coral Reef Park. We have tried for 2 years now, and COVID has made it very difficult. That this has gone out for RFP, comes back, you contract with somebody, they can't find the workers or they can't get the materials. So hopefully some of these, large maintenance, small maintenance projects that are necessary as you start to move a city forward, I think those are going to be extremely important. It's like you said, we can't go back to 2004, right? Can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, anybody would have made different decisions than seeing the outcome.
I agree.
You have to have conviction in what you want to do and go out and try to do it.
Sure. And then, so those are community priorities. And then I think the things that people just kind of leave to us, right? Development. We have had a very, very vocal many years, long before I was on council. Going back again, I know you served on that first committee for the charrette. I remember. I was
that crazy.
I remember. It's a good kind of crazy. Giving back to the community is a good kind of crazy. When I became mayor in 2018, and I'm only going to just double back because I think it's important to talk about where we're headed in the future. It was about 19 to 21 meetings, and it was no small task, building consensus to reduce density and reduce height in our downtown area. One of my colleagues on council, Councilwoman Matson, and I do want to give her a little bit of a shout out, has brought from the priorities of the Neighborhood Protection Committee to our council to be able to have us vote to implement with the people, either by ballot, because a lot of these things were things that were voted on, or recommendation of the neighborhood protection, bring those. One of those was the 45 feet, maximizing height in our community at 45 feet. And I think these are some conversations we might have had the last time that I can't remember. So development, and really, it has been challenging with the county. There is, I'll call it the Bigfoot effect, if you will, where you've got county commissioners who are moving forward an agenda that may not be the agenda of the people of the village of Palmetto Bay. And I really think, for me, that's been extremely important. What are the things that are going to negatively impact the quality of life in our village, and how do we both work with the county to see that some of these, what we consider not good policy for the village. I can't speak for my colleagues north or south, right? Everybody's got their own demographics and geographics and councils that are making decisions for their cities. But really being able to focus on those things that could potentially be detrimental to the village. And I am committed to being that person that's able to not only work with the county, but also stand up and say no if it's necessary to stand up and say no. And we have said no to a few things.
I'm going to bring up a topic that just came to mind.
Sure.
And it came to mind because we didn't talk about it on this episode or in the prior episode. And for so long in Palmetto Bay, it was divisive and, this is right or this is wrong. It was about using speed bumps or speed tables to divert traffic. And I have always said, and maybe you'll agree or disagree, speed humps are to reduce speed.
They are.
They are not to divert traffic to more primary roads. And so when I was living in Palmetto Bay, we had these speed humps put into our neighborhood, and it did not reduce the number of cars going there. But what's interesting to me is all the people, whether they were on one side or the other, seem to be very quiet right now. Do you believe there's a reason for that? Or maybe I'm not hearing that conversation continue.
Well, I know we have an item coming up. I won't speak directly to it, but the manager is going to be presenting. We did a traffic study for all of those areas that have been long since in this queue. We were in a moratorium because in the past, the rules weren't being followed, so to speak. So traffic studies weren't being done before and after installation. So that has been completed, at least for, the long list that has been applied for by the residents. This is not us just saying, what about this street or that street or the other street? These are residents that have made formal requests, in many cases completing a temporary application, a temporary speed hump application. I don't think all the streets, things have changed. COVID is one. I can tell you again, just from chatting with folks at their doorsteps. I say, hey, have you gone back to work? Are you using the park and ride? They're like, I did just come from work to open the door. I'm right back there in my office.
So a lot of people working from home. What kind of percentage increase? And just total guess.
This is going to be a guess.
Where it was 95% of the people going to an office for work. What about now?
I'm going to give you, this is going to be a real rough estimate.
Sure.
I'm going to say somewhere between 11 and 15% of the folks that may have been traveling before are no longer traveling.
And that'll change a lot of things.
Yeah. Regardless of the number, I hate giving numbers to things because someone's going to quote me later and say like, oh no, what's it? Definite change. Traffic is not what it was prior. It's still bad though. I mean, people still have to get up and they have to go to work. And more importantly, they got to get their kids to school. And we have 15 places in the village to take your children to school.
Okay. You besides being the mayor, you are involved with our education system. And please tell me, somebody has figured out why for the first 2 weeks that school is back in session, people forget how to drive. Why does it take
I don't think they forget
an hour to drop a kid off at school on the first day of school, and it takes 10 minutes 3 weeks later?
We will break all of that down in our next meeting, but let me just say this, that imagine all of the kindergarten children or preschool children going to school for the very first time. Okay, so that's one. People unfamiliar with where the pickup and where drop off. In many cases, our schools, and I can only speak to the ones in Village of Palmetto Bay, have implemented new drop off pickup. And so, it requires, there's a little bit of a learning curve. We get a lot of, I don't want to call them complaints, but concerns right at the beginning. And then, and today I did see two very unhappy, I hope they weren't residents of Palmetto Bay, but a lot of enforcement going on in the village. I was out by the schools this morning.
Slow down.
So, slow down.
Could be your
Make
kids.
sure, slow down. Absolutely.
So we are at that part of the show. I didn't even tell you about this, but I'm going to give you an opportunity. It's not really a political pitch, but we've got about a minute left in the show, and I'm going to have you look at the camera out here and tell people why you want to continue to serve us right over there.
Oh, okay. This one, I like it. You're pointing. Well, listen, I love Palmetto Bay. I think we're actually should be so honored that we have so many individuals that give their time and talent, whether it's to run for elected office or to volunteer. I think we're headed in a we've kind of straightened things out over the course of the last 4 years. We're headed in a really good direction. We have great leadership in our charter officers. And I want to continue the good work. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that still need doing in the Village of Palmetto Bay. I think we've built some very considerable consensus. And I mean that in a good way, not in terms of votes or a voting block, but just folks that are able to get along when they're on the dais. And I think I want to continue that good work. And hopefully the village the residents will see that. And, I hope I earn their trust and their respect if I haven't done so over the last 4 years in the next 61 days.
Oh, wow. 61 days away. Listen, anybody who serves, I have respect for. It's a lot of work for not a lot of money. And you certainly hear naysayers, no matter what position you're in. So thank you and everybody who serves in Palmetto Bay, Pinecrest, etc.
Just real quick shout out. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Saturday, this Saturday, we are turning 20 years old. It's not featured here, but I know the Community News did a great whole newspaper on 20 years. We've got some exciting guests coming out. It's going to be at Village Hall, starts at 5 p.m. Invite everyone to come out and join us. You've been a long part of that history.
Definitely will. And for those of you that were watching, we appreciate you. If you missed us live, go type those questions in. We'll follow up with you for sure.
Definitely.
Every week I got a great guest. This week was the mayor of Palmetto Bay. Thank you again for coming in and making it. And the thunder seems to have subsided. So maybe we're going to be dry when we get out of here. Have a great week, everybody.